She thought she married a businessman. A kind man with soft eyes who brought her flowers every Sunday. A man who played tea party with their daughters and read them bedtime stories in 3 different voices. But the day 12 black SUVs pulled up to the hospital, the day men in expensive suits bowed to her unconscious husband, everything she thought she knew shattered like glass. This is the story of Maya Thompson and the man she thought she knew. A love story built on truth and lies. On protection and secrets. On the impossible question, can you love someone when you don't know who they really are? If you love emotional stories that keep you on the edge of your seat, hit that subscribe button right now. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. Now, let me take you back to where it all began. To a rainy Tuesday night. To a moment of kindness that would change 2 lives forever. Maya Thompson had always believed in signs. Her grandmother used to say that the universe speaks to us in whispers, and if we're quiet enough, we might just hear it. On that Tuesday evening in March, the universe wasn't whispering. It was screaming through thunder and rain that hammered the Seattle streets like bullets. Maya was 26 years old, working 2 jobs to pay off her nursing school loans. Her arms ached from a double shift at the community clinic in the Central District, where she'd spent 12 hours wrapping wounds, taking temperatures, and holding the hands of people who had no one else. Her scrubs were stained with coffee and the purple ink from a pen that had exploded in her pocket. Her natural hair, usually styled in a beautiful crown of coils, was pulled back in a tired bun, a few strands escaping to frame her face. She was waiting at the bus stop on Jackson Street, watching the rain create rivers in the gutters, when she saw him. He was slumped against the brick wall of a closed pawn shop about 20 feet away. Even through the rain, Maya could see the dark stain spreading across his white shirt. Blood. His face was turned slightly away, but she could make out sharp cheekbones, Asian features, black hair plastered to his forehead. His expensive-looking suit was torn at the shoulder. Every instinct Maya had learned in nursing school kicked in immediately. She didn't think about the danger. She didn't think about the neighborhood's reputation or the fact that she was alone. She only saw someone who needed help. "Sir." She ran to him, her sneakers splashing through puddles. "Sir, can you hear me?" His eyes opened slowly. They were dark brown, almost black, and even clouded with pain. There was something intense about them. Something that made Maya's breath catch for just a moment before her training took over. "I'm fine," he managed, his accent carrying traces of both American English and something else. "Korean, maybe." His voice was deep, controlled despite the obvious pain. "Please, go." "You are absolutely not fine. You're bleeding." Maya was already kneeling beside him, her hands gentle but efficient as she lifted his shirt. A deep gash ran along his ribcage. Not a gunshot, thankfully. A knife wound, maybe. Or he'd fallen on something sharp. She didn't ask. "I'm a nurse." "Well, almost. I graduate in 2 months. Can you stand?" "You shouldn't be here." His hand caught her wrist, surprisingly strong. "Not safe. For you or for me." Maya looked directly into his eyes. "Because right now, you're the one who's going to pass out if we don't get you help. My apartment is 3 blocks away. I have medical supplies. Or we can call an ambulance, but that means police, questions, and no hospitals." The words came out sharp, urgent. No police. Maya should have walked away. She knew that. But there was something in his eyes. Not cruelty. Not violence. Just exhaustion. A deep weariness that she recognized because she saw it in her own mirror sometimes. The look of someone who'd been carrying too much for too long. "Okay," she heard herself say. "No hospitals. But you're coming with me, and you're letting me patch you up, and if you die in my apartment, I'm going to be really upset about it." Clear. Despite everything, the corner of his mouth twitched. Almost a smile. Clear. Getting him to her apartment was harder than Maya expected. He was taller than she'd realized, probably 6 feet, with broad shoulders despite his lean build. He tried not to lean on her, tried to walk on his own, but by the second block, his arm was heavy across her shoulders and she was taking most of his weight. Her apartment building was a walk-up in a converted warehouse. 4 floors, no elevator, And of course she lived on the top floor. By the time they reached her door, both of them were breathing hard, and the stranger's face had gone gray beneath his tan. Maya's apartment was small but clean. She'd made it her sanctuary. Plants crowded the windowsills. Potholes, snake plants, a fiddle leaf fig she was probably overwatering. Her grandmother's quilt was draped over the second-hand couch. Medical textbooks were stacked on the coffee table next to a half-finished mug of chamomile tea from that morning. She guided him to the couch, moved quickly to her bathroom for her medical kit. When she came back, he was looking around her space with those intense dark eyes. "Nice place," he said quietly. "It's small, but it's mine." Maya sat beside him, snapped on latex gloves. "This is going to hurt. I need to clean it before I can close it. I'm going to give you something to bite down on." She handed him a clean washcloth. He took it but didn't use it, just gripped it in one hand while she worked. He didn't make a sound as she cleaned the wound with antiseptic, didn't flinch when she began carefully closing it with butterfly bandages. She'd seen grown men cry from less pain. "You're tough," she murmured, focused on her work. "Or stupid. Haven't decided which yet. Maybe both." There was that almost smile again. "What's your name?" "Maya. Maya Thompson." She glanced up at him. "And you are?" He hesitated. Just for a moment. "Jin. Kim Jin-woo." "Well, Jin Kim Jin-woo," Maya secured the last bandage. "You're lucky. It's not as deep as I thought. Missed anything vital. You'll need antibiotics though, and you should really see a proper doctor." "I can't." "Can't or won't. Does it matter?" Maya sat back, studied him. In better light, she could see he was probably in his early 30s. Handsome, in a way that seemed almost dangerous. Strong jaw, high cheekbones, those watchful eyes that seemed to catalog everything. His hands, she noticed, were elegant but scarred across the knuckles. "I suppose not. But Jean." "Yes. Whatever you're involved in, whatever put you in that alley bleeding, be careful." "Okay. I don't know you, but I'd like to think I didn't waste my supplies on someone who's just going to get himself killed tomorrow." Something shifted in his expression. Softened. "You're a good person, Maya Thompson. I'm a tired person who made a choice." She stood, pulled off her gloves. "You can stay on the couch tonight. I'm going to make some tea, and then we're both going to sleep because I have a shift at 6 tomorrow and you have an appointment with Not Dying. We clear." That almost smile became a real one. Small, but genuine. Clear. When Maya woke the next morning, Jean was gone. The quilt was folded neatly on the couch. Her medical supplies were organized better than she'd left them. And on her kitchen counter was $500 in crisp bills and a note in elegant handwriting. "Thank you for your kindness. Please accept this as payment for supplies and trouble. J." Maya stared at the money for a long time. $500 for maybe $20 worth of supplies. She should have felt good about it, should have felt grateful. Instead, she felt strangely sad. Like something brief and bright had flickered through her life and vanished. She put the money in her savings account and tried not to think about intense dark eyes and almost smiles. 3 weeks passed. Spring was pushing through Seattle's gray clouds, bringing cherry blossoms and longer days. Maya finished her last semester, passed her nursing boards on the first try, and accepted a position at Swedish Medical Center. Her friends from school wanted to celebrate, so on a Friday night, they dragged her to a bar in Capitol Hill called the Watershed. It was upscale for their usual places, all exposed brick and mood lighting, with a bartender who did complicated things with smoke and foam. Maya felt out of place in her simple black dress while her friend Janelle wore sequins and her friend Marcus had on a suit jacket that probably cost more than Maya's rent. "We're celebrating you becoming a real nurse." Janelle was already 2 cocktails in, her voice carrying over the music. "You're going to drink, you're going to dance, and you're going to have fun if it kills me." Maya laughed, let herself relax into the evening. They claimed a high table near the bar, ordered drinks with names Maya couldn't pronounce. The music was good, some kind of neo-soul that made her want to move. She was halfway through her second drink, feeling warm and loose and happy, when she saw him. Jean was sitting at the far end of the bar, and he looked completely different from the wounded man who'd bled on her couch. He wore a charcoal gray suit that fit him perfectly, his black hair styled back from his face. He was listening to the man next to him, nodding occasionally, but there was a distance in his expression. A formality. Then his eyes swept the room and found hers. For a moment, neither of them moved. Maya felt her heart do something complicated in her chest. Recognition flashed across Jin's face, followed by surprise, and then something warmer. Something that made her skin prickle with awareness. He excused himself from his companion and crossed the room to her. People seemed to move out of his way without thinking about it. There was something about how he carried himself now, confident and contained, that drew attention and respect. "Maya Thompson," he said when he reached her table. "The nurse who saves strangers in the rain." "Jin Kim Jin Woo," she replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "The man who bleeds on couches and leaves mysterious amounts of cash." That was for the supplies. That was way too much for the supplies. Then consider it a thank you for your kindness. His eyes crinkled slightly at the corners. "How are you?" "I'm good. Great, actually. I passed my boards. I'm officially an RN now." Something genuine lit up his face. "Congratulations. That's wonderful." "Really?" Janelle was staring at them with undisguised curiosity, and Marcus had his eyebrows raised so high they'd nearly reached his hairline. Maya realized she should introduce them but found she didn't want to. This moment felt private somehow, separate from the rest of her life. "Would you like to get a drink?" Jean asked. "Unless you're here with..." He glanced at her friends. "We're celebrating." Janelle interrupted, not subtle at all. "But Maya can absolutely take a break from celebrating with us to celebrate with you." "Right, Maya." Maya shot her a look that promised retribution later but found herself nodding. "Sure. One drink." They found a quieter corner of the bar, 2 stools by the window overlooking the street. Jean ordered whiskey, neat. Maya got another cocktail, something with elderflower and gin that tasted like spring. "You look different," Maya said. "Healthier. Less like death." He laughed, a real laugh this time, and it transformed his face. "Thanks to you. The wound healed perfectly. No infection. You did good work. So are you going to tell me how you got hurt? Would you believe me if I said it was a workplace accident?" "Depends on where you work." Jean took a sip of his whiskey. "Import-export business. Sometimes negotiations get heated." It wasn't exactly a lie, Maya would realize much later. Just not exactly the truth either. But in that moment, in the warm light of the bar with music washing over them, she decided she didn't need to know everything. Everyone had secrets. Everyone had parts of their lives they kept private. "Okay," she said simply. "Import-export. Got it." They talked for an hour, then 2. The conversation flowed easily, surprisingly so. Jean asked about her nursing school experience, and she told him about the patient who'd tried to prescribe himself medications and the time she'd had to deliver a baby in the clinic because the ambulance couldn't get there in time. He listened with complete attention, like every word mattered. She asked about his business, and he talked about shipping logistics and international trade regulations in a way that was both vague and specific. He spoke Korean and English and passable Mandarin. He'd grown up between Seattle and Seoul. His parents had died when he was young. He liked old movies and didn't like coffee but drank it anyway. "What do you like?" Maya asked. "If you could do anything, be anywhere, what would make you happy?" Jean was quiet for a long moment, turning his glass in his hands. "I think, peace. Quiet. A life where I didn't have to constantly watch my back. Where I could just be." There was something in his voice, a loneliness that Maya recognized. She reached out, covered his hand with hers. His skin was warm, his fingers long and elegant despite the scars. "Everyone deserves that," she said softly. "Everyone deserves peace." He looked down at their hands, then up at her face. The intensity in his eyes was back, but it was different now. Warmer. "Can I see you again? Are you asking me on a date, Jin Kim Jin Woo?" Yes. Yes, I am. Maya smiled. Then yes. I'd like that. Dating Jin was like learning a new language. A language of careful touches and loaded silences, of things said and things carefully not said. He took her to dinner at a quiet Korean restaurant in International District, where the owner greeted him with deep respect and gave them the best table. He ordered in Korean, choosing dishes he thought she'd like, checking her reactions with almost nervous attention. "This is amazing," Maya said around a mouthful of bulgogi. "You've been holding out on me. If I'd known you had access to food this good, I would have demanded it as payment for the medical care." Jean laughed, and Maya was starting to love that sound. How rare it was. How genuine when it came. "I'll keep that in mind for next time I need stitches." "There better not be a next time. I mean it, Jean. Whatever you're doing, whoever you're negotiating with, I'm careful." He reached across the table, took her hand. His thumb traced circles on her palm, and Maya felt heat spread up her arm. "I promise." He walked her home after dinner, his hand warm in hers. At her door, he paused. "Can I kiss you?" Maya's heart hammered. Yes. The kiss was soft, careful, like he was afraid she might break. Maya pressed closer, her hands sliding up to his shoulders, and felt him relax into it. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing harder, Jean rested his forehead against hers. "I should go," he murmured. "You should." "I don't want to." "I don't want you to." But he did go, and Maya floated into her apartment, her lips still tingling, her whole body warm with possibility. They fell into a pattern over the next few months. Jean worked strange hours, sometimes disappearing for days with apologetic texts about being out of town for business. But when he was there, he was completely present. He brought her lunch at the hospital, learned her schedule, showed up with coffee exactly how she liked it. He met her friends, was charming and polite with them, though Maya noticed he never talked much about himself. Marcus pulled her aside one night. "I like him, Maya. I do. But there's something. I don't know. He's almost too smooth. Too controlled." "You sure he's telling you everything?" "Who tells anyone everything?" Maya countered. "We've only been dating 4 months, Marcus. I don't need his whole life story." But sometimes, late at night, when Jean thought she was asleep, Maya would wake to find him staring at the ceiling, his jaw tight, his whole body tense with something he wouldn't share. She'd curl into his side, press her lips to his shoulder, and feel him slowly relax. Whatever he was carrying, whatever weight pressed on him, she wanted to help bear it. But he had to let her in first. 6 months in, Jean took her to the San Juan Islands for a weekend. They stayed in a small cottage overlooking the water, and for 2 days, it was like the rest of the world disappeared. They cooked together, laughed together, made love with a tenderness that made Maya's eyes sting with unexpected tears. On their last evening, they walked along the beach at sunset. The sky was painted in oranges and pinks, the water calm and silver. Jean stopped, turned to her, and Maya saw something vulnerable in his face that she'd never seen before. "Maya," he said quietly, "I need to tell you something." Her heart clenched. This was it. Whatever secret he'd been carrying, he was finally going to share it. "Okay. He stopped, jaw working. "I love you. I'm in love with you. And I need you to know that before anything else. That's what's real. What we have. What I feel for you. That's the truest thing in my life." It wasn't what Maya had expected, but it was better. So much better. "I love you too," she whispered. "God, Jean, I love you so much." When he kissed her this time, there was something desperate in it. Something that felt like goodbye and hello all at once. Maya pushed the worry away and kissed him back, poured everything she felt into it, and tried not to think about the words he hadn't said. Before what, Jean? Before what? They got married a year later, in a small ceremony at the courthouse with only their closest friends. Jean wore a navy suit that made his eyes look almost black. Maya wore a cream dress she'd found at a vintage shop, with her natural hair styled in a crown of braids and curls, fresh flowers woven through. They said their vows in front of a judge who seemed bored until she looked up and saw the way Jean looked at Maya. Then she smiled. "I've been doing this 30 years, the judge said after, "and I've never seen a man look at his wife the way you look at yours. Hold on to that." Jin's hand tightened on Maya's. "I will. I promise." They moved into a townhouse in Ballard, something bigger than Maya's old apartment but not ostentatious. Jin paid cash, which Maya thought was odd, but he explained he'd saved aggressively, didn't trust banks. The house had good light and a small garden where Maya planted tomatoes and herbs. It felt like a home. Jin was gone more often now, his business trips lasting up to a week sometimes. But when he was home, he was present. He learned to cook Maya's grandmother's recipes, practiced until he got the seasoning exactly right. He rubbed her feet after long shifts. He listened to her work stories with patient attention, remembered her patients' names, asked follow-up questions weeks later. When Maya got pregnant with their first daughter, Jin cried. Actually cried, tears sliding down his face as he pressed his hand to her still flat belly. "We're having a baby," he whispered, voice thick. "Maya, we're having a baby." "We are," she laughed, her own eyes wet. "You're going to be a dad." Something complicated crossed his face. "I want to be a good father. I want to give her everything. Keep her safe. Both of you safe." "You will," Maya promised. "You will." Lily was born on a snowy January morning, 6 pounds and 7 ounces of pure perfection. She had Jin's dark hair and Maya's nose, and when she looked up at them with unfocused dark eyes, Maya felt her entire world shift and reorganize itself around this tiny person. Jin was a devoted father. He did midnight feedings, learned to change diapers with military precision, sang Korean lullabies in a surprisingly good voice. He worked from home more, set up an office in their spare room. Maya sometimes heard him speaking rapid Korean on the phone, his voice hard in a way it never was with her, but when he came out, he'd scoop up Lily and become soft again. 2 years later, Rose arrived, and their family felt complete. 2 little girls with curly hair and bright eyes and their father's intensity and their mother's warm heart. Jin was patient with them, played tea party and dress up, let them paint his nails and put clips in his hair. He built them a treehouse in the backyard, made them laugh with silly voices, taught them to be brave and kind. To the outside world, they were normal, happy, a family like any other. But Maya noticed things. The way Jin never brought colleagues home. The phone calls he took in another room. The fact that she'd never met anyone from his company, despite him supposedly running a major import-export business. The expensive security system he insisted on installing. The way he sometimes came home with bruises he'd explain away as accidents. "Jin," she said one night after tucking the girls in. They were 5 and 3 now, already showing such distinct personalities. Lily was cautious and thoughtful. Rose was bold and mischievous. Both were the lights of Maya's life. "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." He looked up from his laptop, something guarded entering his expression. "Okay. Are you in trouble? Is there something going on that I should know about?" "No," he said immediately. "No, Maya. I promise. I'm just, business has been complicated lately. I'm handling it. Are we safe? The girls." He crossed to her, took her face in his hands. "You are the safest people in the world. I swear it. I would never let anything hurt you or our daughters. Never." The intensity in his voice should have reassured her. Instead, it made her more nervous. Because it was the voice of a man who'd had to think about keeping his family safe. Who'd had to make it a priority. Who knew what kind of threats existed. But the girls needed a bath, and there was laundry to fold, and it was easier to believe him. Easier to push down the worry and focus on the life they'd built. The good life. The happy life. The life that was about to shatter. It happened on a Tuesday. Maya would remember that detail later, would think about how ordinary the day had started. She'd made pancakes for breakfast. Jin had helped Lily with her shoes. Rose had insisted on wearing her princess dress to preschool. Normal. Everything was normal. Jin kissed them all goodbye at 7:30. "I'll be home for dinner," he promised. "I'm thinking we make tacos. The girls can help. They'll get more on the floor than in the shells," Maya warned. That's half the fun. He kissed her again, longer this time. I love you. Love you too. That was the last normal moment. The call came at 2:15 in the afternoon. Maya was at work, checking a patient's vitals, when her phone rang with an unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her step into the hall and pick up. Is this Maya Kim? A woman's voice. Professional. This is Swedish Medical Center. Your husband, Jin Kim, was brought in about an hour ago. There's been an accident. The world tilted. What? What kind of accident? Car accident. He's in surgery now. You should come as soon as you can. Maya's hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the phone. She told her supervisor, grabbed her purse, called Janelle to pick up the girls from school. Then she ran. Swedish was only 15 minutes away, but it felt like hours. Maya's mind was racing, catastrophizing. Jin was careful. So careful. How had this happened? Was he okay? Please, God, let him be okay. The girls needed their father. She needed her husband. When she got to the hospital, they directed her to the surgical wing. A doctor met her in the waiting room, a woman about Maya's age with kind eyes and tired face. Mrs. Kim. I'm Dr. Patel. Your husband is out of surgery. The accident was serious. Multiple broken bones, internal bleeding, head trauma. We've stabilized him, but he's in a coma. We're not sure when he'll wake up. The words hit like fists. Can I see him? Of course. This way. The ICU was hushed, full of beeping machines and antiseptic smell. Jin looked small in the hospital bed, hooked up to tubes and monitors, his face pale and bruised. Maya stood in the doorway for a moment, her nurse training warring with her terror. She knew what all these machines meant. Knew the numbers on the monitors. Knew how serious this was. She pulled a chair to his bedside, took his hand carefully, avoiding the 4 lines. Hey, she whispered. It's me. It's Maya. You're going to be okay, all right? You're strong. You're going to wake up, and you're going to come home to us. The girls need you. I need you. So you fight, Jin. You hear me? You fight. His hand was warm in hers, but there was no response. No flutter of eyelids. Nothing. Maya sat with him for hours, leaving only when the nurses insisted she needed to eat something, check on her daughters. She called Janelle, who assured her the girls were fine, didn't understand what was happening yet. Maya would have to tell them soon. Would have to find words to explain why Daddy wasn't coming home. She was back at Jin's bedside when she heard the commotion. Voices in the hall, urgent and commanding. The charge nurse saying, "Sir, you can't all go in there." And then the door opened, and Maya's world changed forever. 12 men in dark suits entered the ICU. They moved with coordinated precision, like soldiers. Most of them were Asian, Korean maybe, ranging from their 20s to their 50s. They wore expensive watches and crisp white shirts. Several had visible tattoos creeping up from their collars. The one who entered last was older, maybe 60, with gray-streaked hair and eyes that missed nothing. He looked at Jin in the bed, and his face crumpled with genuine grief before he composed himself. Then he turned to Maya, and bowed. Deeply. All 12 men bowed. "Mrs. Kim," the older man said in Korean-accented English. "I am Kong Soo-min. I was your husband's advisor. We've been looking for him for 6 hours. We're relieved to see he's alive." Maya stood slowly, her heart hammering. "Who are you? How do you know Jin?" Kong glanced at the others, something passing between them. "Perhaps we should speak in private." "No." Maya's voice came out harder than she'd intended. "No more private conversations. No more secrets. Tell me right now, who is my husband? What is he really?" The silence stretched. Finally, Kong spoke, his voice gentle but firm. "Your husband is Kim Jin-woo, head of the Kim family. He controls most of the Korean operations on the West Coast. Import-export, yes, but also other businesses. Protection. Territory. He is what you would call a mafia boss. The words tasted like ash in Maya's mouth. My husband is a mafia boss. Kong inclined his head. Yes. Maya sat down hard, her legs giving out. The nurse training that had kept her composed shattered. No. No, that's not. He told me he ran an import-export company. He told me. He did run such a company, Kong said quietly. It wasn't entirely a lie. But yes, there was more. Much more. He kept it from you to protect you. And your daughters. My daughters. Maya's head snapped up. Are they in danger? Is my family in danger because of what he does? No, Kong said firmly. No one would dare. Your husband made it very clear, to all families, that you and your children were completely separate from business. Untouchable. The penalty for even approaching you would be severe. But the accident was an accident. A truck ran a red light. We've checked. There was no attack. No assassination attempt. Just terrible luck. Maya looked at Jin, unconscious and fragile in his hospital bed. This man she'd loved for 7 years. This man she'd married, built a life with, had children with. How much of it had been real? How much had been a carefully constructed lie? Did he ever love me? The question came out broken. Or was I just, cover? A normal life to hide behind. Kang's expression softened. Mrs. Kim, I have known Jin Woo since he was 16 years old. I watched him take over his father's organization. I've seen him make hard decisions, ruthless decisions, decisions that would give you nightmares. But I have never, in all those years, seen him look at anything the way he looks at you. The love is real. I promise you that. But everything else was a lie. Everything else was complicated. Over the next hour, Kong told her the truth. How Jin's father had built an empire in Seattle, combining legitimate business with less legitimate operations. How he'd been murdered when Jin was 19, forcing Jin to take over far too young. How Jin had spent 15 years solidifying power, making alliances, eliminating rivals. How he'd become one of the most powerful men in the criminal underworld of the Pacific Northwest. And how he'd met Maya and, for the first time in his life, wanted something clean. Something pure. Something separate from the blood and violence and necessary evil of his work. He kept you separate on purpose, Kong explained. He never brought business home. Never let his world touch yours. It was the one place he could be just Jin. Just a man who loved his wife and daughters. Maya listened, her mind spinning. She thought about the late-night calls. The unexplained absences. The way Jin sometimes came home with shadows in his eyes. The pieces started fitting together, forming a picture she didn't want to see but couldn't deny. I need time, she finally said. I need to think. Of course. Kong bowed again. We'll station men outside the hospital. For your protection. Whether you believe us or not, there are people who might see this as an opportunity. We won't let that happen. They left as quickly as they'd come, and Maya was alone with her unconscious husband again. She looked at his face, at the features she'd kissed 1,000 times, and felt her heart breaking. Who are you? She whispered. Who are you really? Jin didn't answer. Jin woke up 4 days later. Maya was there when his eyes opened, watched him blink slowly at the ceiling, watched awareness return and then confusion and then fear. Maya! His voice was rough from the breathing tube. Are you okay? The girls. We're fine. She kept her voice neutral. How do you feel? Like I got hit by a truck. He tried to smile, then winced. Did I? Yes, actually. She stood, moved to the window. She couldn't look at him. If she looked at him, she might cry, and she needed to be strong for this. Your people found you. Kong Soo-min and about a dozen other men in suits. They told me who you really are, Jin. What you really are. The silence was deafening. Maya! Don't! She held up a hand, still not looking at him. Don't lie to me anymore. I can't. I can't take any more lies. I never lied about loving you. His voice cracked. Everything between us, that was real. That was true. But you lied about everything else. For 7 years. 7 years, Jin. She finally turned to look at him, and the pain in his eyes almost broke her. I built a life with you. I had children with you. I trusted you. And all this time you were… what? A criminal? A gangster? How many people have you hurt? How many people have you killed? I never brought that home. I kept you separate. You kept me in the dark. You let me believe we were normal, that we were safe. But we're not, are we? We're the family of a mafia boss. Do you know what that means? Do you know what could happen to our daughters? Nothing will happen to them. Jin tried to sit up, gasped with pain. Maya, I've spent years making sure of that. Every precaution, every measure. But you can't guarantee it. Can you? Because that's not how this world works. The world you chose. I didn't choose this. For the first time, anger flashed across his face. My father was murdered when I was 19. I had no choice but to take over, or everyone I cared about would have been killed. I did what I had to do to survive, to build something, to have the power to protect people. And then I met you, and for the first time I wanted out. I wanted something different. But I couldn't just walk away. It doesn't work like that. Maya's eyes filled with tears. Then what are we supposed to do? How am I supposed to raise our daughters knowing that their father is a criminal? That at any moment, someone could come after us? After them. They won't. I swear to you. You can't promise that. And I can't. I can't do this, Jin. I can't live in fear. I can't raise my babies in your world. Understanding dawned on his face, followed by devastation. No. Maya, please. Don't do this. I'm taking the girls and leaving. I'm going somewhere safe. Somewhere far from Seattle. Far from your business. Far from everything. And you're not going to follow us. Maya! I love you. The tears were falling now, hot and fast down her cheeks. God help me, I still love you. But I love our daughters more. And I have to keep them safe. Even if that means keeping them safe from you. She walked to the door, her whole body shaking. At the threshold, she stopped without turning around. When you get out of here, don't look for us. Please. Just let us go. I can't do that, Jin's voice was barely a whisper. You're my family. You're everything. Then you should have been honest with us. Maya gripped the doorframe to keep herself upright. Goodbye, Jin. She walked out and didn't look back. If she had, she would have seen Jin pressing his face into his hands, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. Maya moved fast. She called in sick to work, withdrew half their savings. Money she'd earned, money that was legally hers. She told the girls they were going on an adventure, kept her voice bright even though she felt like she was dying inside. Lily, perceptive as always, knew something was wrong but didn't ask. Rose was just excited about a trip. Janelle tried to talk her out of it. Maya, think about this. Running away won't solve anything. It'll keep my girls safe. That's all that matters. Does Jin know you're leaving? He knows. And he's letting you go? Maya's laugh was bitter. I didn't give him a choice. They left Seattle on a gray morning, driving south in Maya's old Honda with 2 suitcases and the girls' favorite toys. Maya didn't have a destination in mind at first. Just away. Away from Seattle. Away from Jin's world. Away from the life she'd thought she had. They ended up in a small town in Northern California called Redwood Falls. Population 3,000. 1 Main Street. A community where everyone knew everyone, which meant if Jin's people came looking, Maya would know. She rented a small house near the elementary school, used her maiden name, paid cash for everything. The girls adjusted better than Maya expected. Lily made friends quickly, always the careful observer who knew how to navigate social situations. Rose threw herself into her new kindergarten class with characteristic enthusiasm. They asked about Daddy sometimes, and Maya's heart broke every time. Daddy's sick, she told them. which wasn't entirely a lie. He needs to get better before he can visit us. Will he get better soon? Rose asked, her dark eyes, Jin's eyes, wide and trusting. I hope so, baby. I hope so. At night, after the girls were asleep, Maya let herself cry. She missed Jin with a physical ache that never faded. Missed his laugh, his touch, the way he looked at her like she was his whole world. She'd catch herself reaching for her phone to call him, to tell him about something funny Lily said or a new word Rose had learned, and then remember. He'd lied to her. For 7 years. He was a criminal. A dangerous man. He was the love of her life. Both things were true, and Maya didn't know how to reconcile them. Kong called her once, 2 weeks after she'd left. Mrs. Kim. Jin is recovering well. He's been released from the hospital. That's good, Maya said carefully. I'm glad he's okay. He's asked about you. About the girls. I can't talk to him. He knows. He understands. But Mrs. Kim, he's not himself. He's working too much, taking unnecessary risks. Kong paused. He's lost without you. Without them. Maya closed her eyes against the tears. I'm sorry, but I can't come back. It's not safe. It's safer with him than without him, Kong said quietly. But I respect your decision. If you need anything, any help at all, please call me. After he hung up, Maya sat in her dark living room and let herself imagine, just for a moment, what it would be like to go back. To walk into Jin's arms and feel safe again. To let him hold their daughters and watch his face light up with love. But then she remembered the men in suits. The casual mention of territory and protection and other families. The life he'd hidden from her. She stayed in Redwood Falls. Jin tore the world apart looking for them. He had resources that Maya could barely imagine. Private investigators. Contacts in every major city. Technology that could track credit card usage, phone records, any digital footprint. But Maya had been smart. She used cash, didn't use her phone, kept her head down. It was like she'd vanished into thin air. She doesn't want to be found, Kong said gently after the 3rd month of searching. Maybe you should respect that. They're my family. Jin was standing at his office window, looking out over Seattle's skyline. He'd lost weight, the angles of his face sharper. There were new lines around his eyes. I need to know they're safe. They are safe. I've verified that much. Small town in California, good schools, quiet neighborhood. She's working at a clinic. The girls are happy. You found them. Jin spun around, hope and anger warring on his face. Where? Jin. Tell me where they are, Kong. The older man shook his head. Not until you tell me what you plan to do. Are you going to respect her wishes? Or are you going to barge back into their lives? Jin was quiet for a long time. Finally, he said, I just need to see them. To make sure they're really okay. I won't approach them. I won't even let them see me. I just need. His voice broke. I need to see their faces. Please. Kong studied him, saw the desperation, the grief, the love. One look. From a distance. And then you come back to Seattle and let her have the space she asked for. Agreed. Agreed. They drove to Redwood Falls on a Tuesday afternoon. Jin sat in the car across from the elementary school, watching parents pick up their children. And then he saw them. Maya looked tired, thinner, wearing jeans and a sweater he'd bought her for her last birthday. Her hair was in a ponytail, natural curls escaping around her face. She was beautiful. She was everything. And then Lily came running out, her backpack bouncing, and threw herself into Maya's arms. Rose followed, chattering about something, her hands moving animatedly. Maya laughed at whatever Rose was saying, pressed a kiss to Lily's forehead, took both their hands, and walked them to their car. Jin watched his family, and something in his chest cracked open. They were okay. They were safe. They were together. And he wasn't part of it. We should go, Kong said quietly. I know. But Jin couldn't look away. Not yet. He watched them drive away, And even after the car disappeared, he sat there, memorizing the glimpse he'd had. The way Maya moved. The sound of Rose's laughter carrying on the wind. The serious expression on Lily's face. I need to make them safe, Jin said finally. Truly safe. So that even if they come home, there's no danger. No threat. No reason for Maya to be afraid. Jin, that would require. I know what it would require. He turned to Kong, and there was steel in his eyes. I need to step back from operations. Put everything legitimate under managers. Distance myself from the family business. Make it clear that I'm out, that my family has nothing to do with any of it. That will take time. Years, maybe. Then I'll take years. Jin's jaw set with determination. I'll do whatever it takes to make them safe. To make a life they can come back to. And then I'll ask Maya for another chance. I'll tell her everything. The truth, all of it. And I'll let her decide. He started that day. Began the slow, careful process of extricating himself from the criminal side of the business. It wasn't easy. There were obligations, agreements, long-standing relationships that couldn't just be severed. But Jin was patient, methodical. He worked with Kong to build legitimate business structures that didn't need his constant oversight. He paid off debts, settled old grudges, made peace with rivals. He also started going to therapy, which surprised everyone, including himself. But if he wanted Maya back, he needed to deal with his own trauma. The violence he'd witnessed and committed. The choices he'd made. The person he'd become. And every week, without fail, he drove to Redwood Falls. He never approached them, never let them see him. But he watched. Made sure they were safe. Saw his daughters grow, even if only from a distance. Lily turned 7, and Jin watched from his car as Maya threw her a birthday party in their small backyard. He could see the balloons, hear the children's laughter. His daughter looked so happy. Rose started losing her baby teeth, and Jin smiled despite the ache in his chest when he saw her gap-toothed grin from across the street. Maya kept working, kept being amazing, kept being the woman he loved more than anything. And Jin kept working, kept changing, kept building a life that might, someday, be safe enough for them to come home to. 8 months after Maya left, Jin decided it was time. He'd done everything he could. The family business was almost entirely legitimate now. What remained of the old operations was handled by others, with Jin's name attached to nothing. He'd created trust funds for the girls that couldn't be touched or traced. He'd bought a property an hour outside Seattle. A secure villa on 10 acres, with guards and gates and every security measure money could buy. A place where his family could be safe. He didn't call ahead. Didn't warn her. He just drove to Redwood Falls on a Saturday morning, parked in front of Maya's house, and knocked on the door. Maya opened it in pajama pants and an old t-shirt, coffee mug in hand, and froze. Jin. He'd rehearsed what he wanted to say. 100 different speeches, carefully crafted explanations. But seeing her face, seeing the shock and hurt and love still there, still present despite everything, he forgot all of it. I know you said not to come, he said. I know you wanted space. But Maya, I need to talk to you. Please. Just give me 5 minutes. She should have slammed the door. Should have called the police. Should have done anything except what she did, which was step back and let him in. They sat at her small kitchen table, not touching, the space between them feeling like miles. Jin could hear the girls playing in the next room, their voices making his heart clench. You look good, Maya said quietly. Healthy. I've been working on myself. Therapy, actually. Dealing with everything. He took a breath. Maya, I know I lied to you. I know I kept my world hidden. And I can't undo that. But I can tell you why. Why then? Because you were the first clean thing in my life since I was 19 years old. The words poured out, raw and honest. Everything in my world was blood and violence and necessary evil. And then I met you and you were kind. You saved a stranger in the rain. You made me laugh. You made me feel human again. And I was selfish enough to want to keep that. To keep you separate from all the darkness. You should have told me. Given me a choice. I know. You're right. But I was terrified that if you knew the truth, you'd leave. Which is exactly what happened anyway, so I guess I was right to be scared. He tried to smile, but it came out sad. But I'm not that person anymore. Or I'm trying not to be. He told her everything then. About stepping back from operations. About the legitimate businesses he'd built. About the villa he'd bought, the security measures, the way he'd spent 8 months making sure that if she came back, she and the girls would be truly safe. I can't erase my past, he said. I can't undo the things I've done. But I can give you and the girls a future where you don't have to be afraid. Where we can be a family again. If you'll have me. Maya was quiet for a long time, her coffee going cold between her hands. Do the girls remember you? She finally asked. I don't know. Do they? Rose asks about you every night. Lily doesn't ask, but she keeps the picture of us from our wedding by her bed. Maya's voice cracked. They miss their father, Jin. And I've been taking him away from them because I was afraid. You weren't wrong to be afraid. No. But I wasn't entirely right either. She looked at him finally, really looked at him, and Jean saw something shift in her eyes. I've been thinking a lot these past 8 months. About truth and lies. About risk and safety. And the thing is, nowhere is really safe. People die in car accidents in quiet little towns. Bad things happen everywhere. And I took our daughters away from their father, from the man who loves them more than anything, because I was scared of what might happen. Maya! Let me finish. She reached across the table, took his hand. I'm still scared. I'm terrified, actually. But I'm more scared of raising our girls without you. They need their father. And I need my husband. The real one. The complicated one. The one who's made mistakes but who's trying to do better. Hope flared in Jin's chest, almost painful. Are you saying? I'm saying show me this villa. Show me these security measures. Show me what you've built. And if I believe we can be safe there, if I believe you're really trying to leave that old life behind, then maybe we can try again. Really? His voice came out rough. You mean that? I love you, Jean. I never stopped. And I'm tired of running from that. The sound of small feet thundering down the hall made them both turn. Rose burst into the kitchen, then stopped dead, her eyes going wide. Daddy! Jin's heart stopped. Hey, Rosie! And then she was running, launching herself at him, and Jean caught her, held her tight against his chest. She felt bigger, heavier. She'd grown so much in 8 months. Lily appeared in the doorway, more cautious, but when Jean held out his other arm, she came too, tucked herself against his side. You're here, Lily whispered. You're really here. I'm here. He looked at Maya over their daughters' heads, saw tears streaming down her face. And if your mom agrees, I'm never leaving again. The villa was everything Jean had promised and more. It sat on a hillside surrounded by forest, with views of mountains and sky. The main house was large but not ostentatious, built from stone and wood that seemed to grow naturally from the landscape. There was a playground for the girls, a garden for Maya, spaces that felt safe and peaceful and far from the dangers of Jin's old world. But it was also a fortress. Reinforced walls. Bulletproof windows. A security team that patrolled the grounds 24/7. Cameras everywhere. Multiple safe rooms. Escape routes. Everything Jin's paranoid mind could think of to keep his family protected. It's a lot, Maya admitted as Jean showed them around. The girls had already run off to explore their rooms, their excited shrieks echoing through the house. It's probably overkill, Jean agreed. But Maya, I need to know you're safe. That they're safe. I can't lose you again. She turned to him, studied his face. You look scared. I am scared. Terrified. Because you're giving me another chance, and I'm terrified I'll mess it up. That I won't be enough. That. She kissed him. Just rose up on her toes and pressed her lips to his, cutting off the anxious spiral. When she pulled back, she said, You're enough. You've always been enough. Now stop overthinking and help me unpack. They moved into the villa the following week. It felt strange at first, living in such a large space after their cozy townhouse and Maya's small rental. But the girls loved it. They had space to run and play, had a father who came home every night, had security that made them feel protected rather than trapped. Jin was different now. More open. He still worked, managing his legitimate businesses, but he left the office at 5 and was home for dinner. He helped with homework, coached Rose's soccer team, taught Lily to play piano. He went to therapy twice a week and sometimes came home with red eyes but a lighter expression. And at night, after the girls were asleep, he and Maya would sit on their deck and talk. Really talk. About his past, about her fears, about what they wanted for their future. "Tell me about your father," Maya said one night. Jin was quiet for a moment, his hand tight around hers. He was a hard man, but fair. He built the family business from nothing, created opportunities for people who had none. But the price was high. He made enemies. And eventually, those enemies killed him. "Were you there?" "Yes." His voice was barely audible. "I was 19. We were having dinner. And then men burst in, and there was gunfire, and my mother was screaming, and my father." He stopped, swallowed hard. "He pushed me down, told me to stay hidden. And I did. I hid like a coward while they killed him." "You weren't a coward. You were a teenager." "I took over the business the next day. Hunted down everyone involved. Made examples of them. Built my reputation on blood and fear because that was the only way to survive." He looked at her, and his eyes were haunted. "I've killed people, Maya. Not many, but enough. I've ordered worse things done. I've made choices that keep me up at night. And I can't undo any of it." "No," Maya agreed. "You can't. But you can choose differently now. You can be a better man for our daughters. Show them that people can change, can grow, can be more than their worst moments." "Do you really believe that?" "I have to. Because otherwise, I can't be here. And I want to be here, Jin. With you. Building this life." He pulled her close, buried his face in her hair. "I love you so much. Thank you for giving me another chance. For believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. Thank you for fighting for us," she whispered back. "For doing the work. For changing." The first year in the villa was about healing. About learning to be a family again. About building trust that had been broken and creating new foundations. Jin kept his promises. He stayed out of his old life completely. When former associates reached out, he referred them to Kong or others. He was present, consistent, reliable. He showed up for every recital, every parent-teacher conference, every bedtime story. Lily, cautious by nature, took longer to fully trust him again. She'd ask careful questions. "Daddy, are you going to leave again? Daddy, are you really staying?" Each time, Jin would sit with her, look her in the eyes, and promise. "I'm not going anywhere. I'm here. Forever." Rose, more open, just seemed happy to have her father back. She'd climb into his lap during movies, demand piggyback rides, tell him endless stories about school and friends and the frog she'd found in the garden. And Jin would listen to every word like it was the most important thing in the world. Maya watched them together and felt her heart healing. This was what she'd wanted. This version of Jin, honest, present, whole. They went to couples therapy together, worked through the betrayal and lies. There were hard sessions where Maya cried and Jin had to sit with the hurt he'd caused. Where he had to hear how his secrecy had made her question everything, had damaged her ability to trust. "I feel like I don't know what's real," she admitted in one session. "Like our whole life together was built on sand." "The love was real," Jin said firmly. "Everything we had, everything we built, that was real. The lies were about my past, my business. But what I felt for you, what we created together, that was the truest thing in my life." "How do I know that?" "Because I'm here. Because I changed everything for you. Because I'd give up every dollar, every business, every bit of power if it meant keeping you and our daughters. It took time, but gradually, Maya began to trust again. Not blindly, but consciously. Choosing each day to believe in Jin, in their marriage, in the future they were building. 2 years after moving to the villa, they renewed their vows. Just a small ceremony in their garden, with Kong and Janelle and the girls as witnesses. Jin cried through his vows, promising transparency and honesty and love for all his remaining days. Maya promised to choose courage over fear, to build rather than run. When the minister pronounced them married again, Lily and Rose cheered. And Jin kissed his wife like it was the first time and the last time and every time in between. Life settled into a rhythm. Jin grew his legitimate businesses, built a reputation as a shrewd but honest businessman. The criminal past became just that. Past. Whispered about in certain circles but separate from his current life. Maya went back to nursing part-time, working at a clinic in the nearby town. She liked the balance, caring for her family and caring for her community. Using her skills in ways that mattered. The girls thrived. Lily became a voracious reader, always with her nose in a book. Rose joined every sport she could find, a bundle of energy and enthusiasm. They had friends, went to birthday parties, lived normal lives. Safe lives. And Jin learned to breathe. To sleep through the night without checking the security feeds. To trust that the fortress he'd built would hold, that the life he'd created wouldn't crumble. One night, 5 years after Maya had come back, they sat on their deck under the stars. The girls were asleep inside. The forest around them was quiet and peaceful. Happy? Jin asked, his arm around Maya's shoulders. She leaned into him, felt his warmth, his solidity. Yes. Are you? More than I ever thought possible. He kissed the top of her head. Thank you for not giving up on me. On us. Thank you for being worth fighting for. They sat in comfortable silence, watching stars wheel across the sky. Inside, their daughters slept safely. Around them, the fortress stood guard. And for the first time in his life, Jin Kim felt truly at peace. 10 years later, Lily was 17 and heading to college. Rose was 15 and captain of her soccer team. And Maya and Jin had built a life that felt as solid as the stone walls around them. There were still challenges. Still moments when the past crept in, when old associates tried to pull Jin back, when Maya had to fight against old fears. But they faced everything together now. Honest. Open. Committed. Jin had become a philanthropist, using his legitimate fortune to build community centers and fund youth programs. Trying to create opportunities for kids like he'd been. Lost, angry, looking for a place to belong. Trying to give them options he'd never had. Maya worked as a nursing supervisor now, mentoring young nurses the way she wished she'd been mentored. Teaching them that healing wasn't just about medical skills. It was about seeing people, really seeing them, even when they didn't want to be seen. And their daughters had grown into remarkable young women. Strong, confident, knowing their father's past but not defined by it. Understanding that people were complex, that love could survive mistakes, that families could heal. On their 15th wedding anniversary, Jin took Maya back to the bar where they'd met again all those years ago. The watershed was still there, still full of mood lighting and expensive cocktails. They sat in the same corner, ordered the same drinks. Jin took Maya's hand across the table. If you could go back, he said quietly, to that night when you found me bleeding in the rain, would you still help me? Knowing everything that would happen. Maya didn't hesitate. Yes. Absolutely yes. Every single time. Even with all the pain. All the lies and fear and... Jin. She squeezed his hand. You gave me the 2 best things in my life. Our daughters. And yes, the journey was hard. Harder than I ever imagined. But it was also beautiful. And it was ours. So yes, I'd do it all again. He brought her hand to his lips, kissed her knuckles gently. I don't deserve you. Probably not, she agreed with a smile. But you're stuck with me anyway. They laughed, and it was light and easy and real. The kind of laughter that came from surviving hard things together. From building something stronger than the lies that had almost destroyed it. Outside, Seattle sparkled with lights. Inside, a couple who'd found each other in the rain, lost each other to fear, and found each other again through love, sat holding hands and planning their future. And somewhere in a fortress on a hillside, two girls slept safely, loved fiercely, and dreamed of their own futures. Futures made possible by a mother who'd been brave enough to run and brave enough to come back. And a father who'd learned that real strength wasn't in the power you held, but in the love you chose to protect. The end. If this story moved you, if you felt every moment of Maya and Jin's journey, hit that subscribe button. Because every story deserves to be heard, every love deserves to be told, and I've got so many more tales waiting to be shared. Thank you for listening. Until next time.